guys. We're going to get this started, but I'm extremely excited. You guys saw a week and a half ago, we announced our new imprint, Outlier Books, and our partnership with Maison Vero. And we've got their team here today, including Davin and Scott Miller. So Davin is the founding partner of Maison Vero, along with Scott Miller. And Scott is also the co-founder of Gray Miller, which is an absolutely incredible organization that we'll talk a little bit more about how that plays into our partnership. But the reason why we did this is we feel like there are so many amazing stories and there are so many people in the Outlier Project that have powerful stories that will fuel transformation, because we truly believe that powerful stories do fuel transformation. And we want to amplify outlier authors. And so we've been thinking about this for a very, very long time, but we could never quite find the right way to do it. And then I have a longtime friendship with Davin, and he and I got talking, and I just was absolutely blown away by what they built with Maison Vero. So I think everybody thinks in terms of traditional publishing and they think of self-publishing, but we are right in kind of a sweet spot where you get the credibility and design of traditional publishing, but you also get the flexibility, the author ownership, and the profitability of self-publishing. So I am unbelievably excited. Davin, I think, is going to kick this off. And so the format is I'm going to let Davin explain everything, and then we're going to open it up. Hopefully we'll have about 20 minutes at the end for Q&A. So Maison Vero is the nation's fastest growing professional publishing house. And Davin is, as I said, a longtime friend and a best-selling author. He's also the founder of Purpose Point and the Purpose Summit. So Davin, thank you for joining us. Scott, thanks for joining us, and the rest of your team. I appreciate it. I think they're all on.
We're here, Scott. Elated to be here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, we're really excited about this partnership. As Scott mentioned, we've known each other for about 7, maybe even 8 years. It's been amazing to watch what was the Talent Champion Council evolve into the Outlier Project, and to see so many amazing people doing so many amazing things, making a difference in this world. It's just been beautiful to see what you curated, Scott, and to be a part of this amazing community from the very, very beginning. And we know there's a lot of stories out there that the world needs to hear, and we're excited to partner with Outlier Books to tell those stories. So I'm going to introduce Scott here in a minute and kind of walk us through a brief agenda. And forgive me because I'm not fully familiar. I haven't shared on this platform before. So tell me when I do this.
Hey, Davin, while you're sharing, can I ask a quick housekeeping question?
Sure.
I need Karen to come back on camera and move back out to that gorgeous view, because Karen, I don't know why you shifted to your kitchen, but my entire existence is now living vicariously through your. Thank you, Karen. Thank you very much. Sit back down. The kitchen view doesn't even. What is that? Where is this, Karen?
Oh, she's there. She's there.
Yeah, she is. Now she's sitting down.
Thank you, Karen.
All right. Can you guys see just the Maison Vero Outlier Books deck, or do you still see my entire screen?
Nope, just that. That's it. We're good.
Fantastic. Great. Okay. So without further ado, I'm excited to introduce my co-founder and partner in Maison Vero and Outlier Books, Scott Jeffrey Miller. Scott has a long career in the book writing, publishing, and launching business. And we're going to cover all aspects of writing, publishing, and launching very quickly in about a 30-minute time frame, and then leave 20 minutes for Q&A on the back end. But I'm going to let Scott introduce his very impressive background and then take us into just kind of a glimpse of what the publishing landscape currently looks like. And then we will go through the Right Publish launch together. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce you to Scott Jeffrey Miller.
To clarify, Karen has the impressive background. I just worked a lot. So
Yes.
everybody, nice to meet you. Honored to be here today. I'm joining you from Salt Lake City, Utah, where I've spent the last 30 years with Stephen Covey. You may remember him as the seminal author of the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. That's turned into arguably the world's most reputable leadership development firm, where I spent 30 of my 40-year career at Franklin Covey, 10 of which as the chief marketing officer and the EVP of thought leadership. So my entire 40 years prior to that, Disney, has been spent in leadership development and really building expertise, if you will, around how to take intellectual property, thought leadership, publishing it in a book as a vehicle to help authors impact, influence, and monetize their own expertise in coaching, keynoting, consulting, and in work sessions and consulting. So that's my jam. Don't ask me about Six Sigma or lean manufacturing or how to spell AI, but intellectual property and books is my jam. And so hopefully we're going to transfer some of our mistakes, otherwise known as knowledge expertise, into you in the next 35, 40 minutes. Have sold hundreds of millions of books myself, have written, authored 9 nonfiction books behind me, probably 3 or 4 too many. And so I've spent, again, my entire career as both an author, agent, publisher, and now keynote speaker as well. The founder of the Gray Miller Agency. We are a large literary speaking and talent agency, and I'm a co-founder with Davin on this new publishing company called Maison Vero. Our hope today is to answer a lot of the questions that you have top of mind, maybe a few you didn't know you had, and then, like Davin said, leave some time. Davin, you want to advance to that first opening slide? Let me just kind of level set with you. The resolution on this isn't perfect, but I'll try to translate here. Let me dispel any rumors. The book business is alive and well. I mean, it's kind of on fire, right? This is why Barnes and Noble is adding 50 bricks and mortar stores every year right now. Nonfiction is kind of flat but strong. Romance sci-fi is kind of on fire, but make no mistake that books are as valuable and as viable as they have ever been. The market is massive. You can see the numbers here. I won't repeat them, but make no mistake that books as a vehicle to influence, build business, build your brand, and grow whatever it is you're trying to do are still the primary way in which thought leaders get their message out in terms of being a guest on podcasts, television, radio, your Substack, your social media, your keynoting, your consulting. And so the business itself is extraordinarily robust. Having said that, consumption has changed fairly dramatically, meaning that right now, Davin, if you'll just keep progressing the slides here, print books are holding strong at about 65% of consumption. Yes, 65% of American book reading is still done in hardcover or paperback. About 10% is done in digital. It's kind of been flat for the last 6 or 8 years and kind of on a slight decline. And depending upon your genre, audio is exploding like a hockey stick. So if your name is Matthew McConaughey, you're probably selling 101% of your books through audio. If you're, Jim Collins, you're probably selling 60%, believe it or not, of good to great. Mainly because your audience is probably in the C-suite and they're on their Peloton at 5 a.m. listening to your book for the 6th time. Same with James Clear, right? With Atomic Habits. For someone like me, and you're writing a general leadership book for the Human Resource Suite, your audio is probably 10%. The point is, you want to make sure that you are providing your audience with the way in which they prefer to consume the content. And these numbers are generally pretty accurate, give or take some nuances on the audio side, which is why everyone should have both a print, hardcover, or softcover. Typically, softcover is a more economical means for those who may be price sensitive. And then audio typically for the C-suite, and digital is kind of ubiquitous across all the different generations. Devin, I'll turn it back over to you a second here. Actually, yeah. I'll take this next one. So authors have different reasons, different motivations for writing books, right? We're privileged with our talent and literary agency to represent about 200 remarkably influential and famous authors, athletes, entrepreneurs, creators, academics. This top individual is Ann Chow. You may know her as the former CEO of AT&T Business. This is about a $45 billion division. She was there for 32 years, the first ever non-male, non-white CEO in its history. And as she began to retire from AT&T, she began to build a consulting and speaking business. And she speaks around 40 to 50 times a year at, about 30 grand a pop. And we were privileged to be her agent for this book called Lead Bigger. She also was a board member. The next is Luke Falk, former NFL quarterback, very successful. NFL standing for not for long. And as he left the NFL in his 30s, early 30s, maybe even late 20s, he built a very successful mind strength coaching program aimed primarily at high school athletes and college NIL, name, image, likeness athletes, and has a thriving six-figure coaching consulting business. Jeff Birmingham, former gubernatorial candidate, private equity, tech-first investor, didn't write a book because he wanted to monetize it, right? He could have bought a publisher. But he wanted to actually be a leading voice in the AI movement as it relates to relationships and institutions and humanity. So you see different people have different reasons for the books that they publish, but they all have very specific whys that Davin will talk more about. This next slide kind of further reinforces your why, and Davin's going to talk about that because this is probably the most important slide in our whole 30-minute conversation.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. So for those of you who know me or been following my work, you know that I talk a lot about purpose, and purpose and why often get interchanged. Those are two different things. Purpose is your reason for being. Your why is your reason for doing. So many of you may have a purpose as an author, a speaker, a coach, a consultant, a thought leader, and you can be very clear on what that purpose is. But your why, your motivation to do it, to actually activate it and step into those things is going to be different for each of you. And when it comes to writing a book, it could be for any of these 6 options. So I'm going to talk briefly about each of these, but as Scott talked about, the why behind writing your book is the most important thing to start with. So we'll spend a little bit more time here than we may on some other slides. But impact and influence is a big one. What is the impact and influence you want to have in the world? There's a reason this is called the outlier community, the outlier project, and the very few that are out there that are making a tremendous impact and having a tremendous influence in the world. So what is the story that you have to tell or that you want to tell? And I talk a lot about ROI, not just return on investment, but return on impact. What do you want your reader, when they get done reading the book, to do? Do you just want it to be a great book, like a great movie that they watch and tell someone about, or a great restaurant that they go and eat at and they tell someone about? Or do you want that book to spur a level of conviction in them that leads to some sort of action that transforms their life, their relationships, their team, their organization? What is your defined ROI, return on impact, for writing the book? It could be a legacy play for you. It could be something that you aren't looking necessarily from a professional standpoint to monetize this. You're not looking to do more speaking, coaching, consulting. You've accumulated a ton of story insight and you just want to leave your mark on the world. You want something to be left behind when you're no longer here. And that could be why you write the book, is to share your story. It could be monetization. It could be that you are actively looking to grow your speaking, coaching, consulting career, or to market your business. And you need a book to be that vehicle that is going to land you on more platforms to share your story, or land you more clients to work with, or to have your company bring in the ideal client for the problem that you solve. So how are you monetizing the book? It could be business development and lead generation. One of the biggest things that companies are now doing are using books as their number one marketing tool for business development and lead generation. And there's very unique ways to do that, which we could talk about later in this deck, and when you how to launch a book, how to make your book be at the top of the stack of other books that are getting mailed to them so that they choose you as the person or company they want to work with. It could be to build your brand or platform. We're working with one of our authors right now who's the chief medical officer for Live Golf. And he's done everything that he's wanted to do successfully for his life, but he's got this entire platform that he wants to build and a brand that he wants to build. And the book is the tip of the spear to build the brand. And so it could be that your book is the starting point for building a whole new brand around your persona. It could be to codify a journey or process. We see this a lot with companies, particularly those who've grown rapidly and they're trying to align their culture, or they're trying to align their message, or maybe the founder or the entrepreneur is leaving and they want to make sure that what they've built, that the core message behind what they built continues to go on once they leave the business. And so they leave a blueprint behind for the next generation of leaders in their organizations to follow. So you may have multiple different reasons for writing the book, but before we dive into the right publish and launch, which we're about to hear momentarily, you need to be crystal clear on what your specific why is for writing this book. Scott's going to share some stories from some people that we've worked with and how that has translated into the ROI, the return on impact for them and for their readers.
And I would just remind you, there's no wrong why, right? Your why is your why. Once you're crystal clear on it, your launch plan in your book should support that very clearly. Here's just a snapshot of a lot of authors that we choose to work for. I mentioned Ann Chow. You see her on the second line right there. The gentleman to her right, this was actually a very famous family photographer. And he only worked with the ultra mega wealthy and spent 30 years as one of the nation's most preeminent photographers inside people's bedrooms and closets and dining rooms and things like that. And then he retired in his early 50s from a very lucrative business. And now he's a consultant. He's written a book called Sell to the Rich. It's the psychology of how the uber wealthy operate. And so for luxury brands and for financial service companies and for, vacation experience companies, he's now consulting based on 30 years of being in intimate settings with the wealthiest people and how they make discernment in decisions around how they, engage. The woman to the right, you may know her. Her name is Karen Dillon. She's the former editor of the Harvard Business Review. She's famous for lots of reasons, including co-authoring this seminal book with the famed Professor Clayton Christensen, the innovation expert, called How Will You Measure Your Life? And so in addition to being the editor, not an editor, but the editor of the Harvard Business Review, former, and the co-author of this book, Karen writes a book about every 3 years. I think she's written 5 books because she likes to keep her speaking business about 30 to 40 keynotes a year, keep it fresh. And so she follows the zeitgeist of where she has expertise, but was also, a great keynote topic for her. Just up to the left of that, you see Jay Schwedelson. He is the founder of subjectline.com, owns a large media company. He also owns a series of event companies, has the #1 marketing podcast on iTunes called Do This, Not That. Jay's in his 50s now, looking to pivot away from, owning these labor-intensive businesses and becoming a brand in and of himself, podcaster, keynote speaker, thought leader. He's written this book coming out next month called Stupider People Have Done It. It's actually a book dispelling best practices that actually aren't. And Jay will probably give, 30 to 40 keynotes this year as well, and has 10 $100,000 brand ambassadorships that he actually pursues. So everyone has a little bit different purpose. What they all have in common was they wrote a book that launched their brand and directed them towards how they chose to influence and monetize that. Now, there's lots of ways to write a book. So let me dispel another rumor that you have to sit down at 4 o'clock every morning for 9 months, 90 minutes in your studio and clickety-clack on a typewriter, right? Welcome to 1990. There's lots of ways to ethically write books. Notice you won't see the word AI on here. We don't allow our authors to use AI to write their books. No deal. You actually sign a disclaimer, you have it. Of course, you can use AI for research and examples, but all of our authors are required to have full ownership of their content. There's lots of ways to do that. You can if you have the discipline and the focus neurologically to sit down and write your book. Great on you. In many cases, number 2, authors will hire someone to co-shepherd them. It might be a ghostwriter, writing partner. It could be a coach. For example, in the 9 books that I've authored, I write all of my books, but I usually send them chapter to chapter to my editor that I've hired, and then he takes them metaphorically, to use a football analogy, over the end zone. Sometimes the chapters land on the 2 yard line. Sometimes they're in the 5 yard line. Sometimes he runs it back to the 10 yard line because it's not ready. But I write my books. This happens to be my book in the center here. And he kind of finishes off each chapter when it's not cogent or right. The third is completely outsourcing it to a competent writing partner, known in many cases as a ghostwriter. And there's lots of ways to do that, right? You can dictate that to them. You can speak it into, a Zoom link and send it to them, have it transcribed. They can interview you and then write it. The challenge with this is finding your voice. Most authors that hire ghostwriters, their consistent issue is the ghostwriter just cannot capture their voice, right? And so it can be dangerous. It also can be very expensive. $50,000, $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 for a real competent ghostwriter. And the last way, one of the ways we specialized in at Maison Vero, is once you have created your architecture and your framework for your book, and you know that it's going to be 4 sections and 2 chapters in each section for a total of, 8 or 10 chapters, then you could be interviewed by someone who's competent, right? You say, okay, there's going to be 8 chapters. Let's go schedule 8 Monday Zoom calls for 90 minutes apiece. And then that interviewer asks you questions. They pull and tease out stories. So then what happened? And then what happened? Tell me more about that. And then what did she do? And then you have this transcribed chapter in a matter of seconds. That person then kind of smooths it out, sends it back to you all in your own words. And then your time, clickety-clack on the typewriter, the keyboard, if you will, is just rounding out your own voices. This has become a very viable strategy for those who are great at translating their thoughts into spoken word. Not everybody has that talent. Some are actually more talented at translating them into your keyboard. All of these ways are acceptable. It's just a matter of what works best for you and your time, your focus, and your natural talent. Let me take 5 minutes to just kind of give you a quick landscape of what the publishing world looks like. So and these aren't in any particular order. There's about 5 different ways in which authors publish books. Historically, they were all done with traditional publishers. I call them the Big 10. Hachette, Penguin Random House, Simon & Schuster, HarperCollins, and they produce a vast majority of the traditional books. Most of them are now owned by private equity companies. So they've moved away from kind of being a think tank foundation to having to deliver money. And so they're much more, if you will, purposeful on the kind of authors that they actually give a book to. It is increasingly harder to get a book deal with a traditional publisher, mainly because gone are the days that John Grisham or Adam Grant can cover the other 95% of the authors that will never sell more than 5,000 books. Yes, you heard that right. 95% of all authors will never sell more than 5,000 books. And most publishers need your book to sell north of $40,000 to turn a profit. So this is still a very viable route for some people. Typically, you'll get an advance. Often the publisher owns the content. They assign you an editor. And after you've written your manuscript and they accept it, it's usually between 12 and 16 months before your book hits the market. They usually have great distribution, strong editing, but they're buying 2028 books right now. In my day job, if you will, as a literary agent, I'm selling books to HarperCollins and Hachette for 2028, and believe it or not, 2029 right now. And if you don't have 1 million Instagram followers, if your name's not Mel Robbins or Oprah Winfrey or Prince Harry, you're likely not going to get a deal with one of these companies. The next is independent. These are usually agile, more nimble publishers that usually are disaffected editors that resigned or retired from a traditional publisher, opened up their own publishing company, fairly similar to a traditional publisher, a little faster to market, may or may not pay you in advance, decent editing, still about 9 to 12 months away from your book hitting the marketplace, may have different distribution, ups and downs there. Usually it's just not speed to market. I'm going to skip professional, go to hybrid. Hybrid kind of burst on the scene about 8 years ago. This is where you pay between $40,000 and $60,000 to have your book published. You own your content. They go to market in about 6 to 9 months, but it's kind of pay to play. It's usually for the kind of uber wealthy or perhaps high profile people who otherwise could not get a deal at the traditional publisher. It's a great model for some people. The downside is you also pay for the inventory. So in addition to your $50,000 check, you also pay for all the printing of the books. Now the back end is a better royalty, but you're out all the cash. The publisher takes, none of the risk. Last is self-publishing. You know this as Amazon, right? KDP and Kindle and others. This exploded in the last 5 to 6 years. Millions of entrepreneurs wrote a book. They self-published it, got it to market on Amazon, sold 36 copies. And what happened is typically their book came out in 90 days and looked more like a pamphlet, not a book. Not in every case. It, in most cases, was brand de minimis, right? It didn't build their authority, to quote Davin, or their credibility. It was a great way for a lot of people to enter the book market. It kind of decimated the focus, if you will, and diluted it a lot. But for a lot of first-time authors, it was a great way to get published. You still had to have your own developmental editor, your own copy editor, your layout editor, your cover designer, all of that. But they really made publishing easy. I think what they did is they really bled the market, and a lot of people came out with books that was not accretive for their brand. It was kind of diminishing, which is why Davin and I, about a year ago, launched Maison Vero, which is this professional publishing author or process, if you will, where we work on authors at all different stages. Your book is gorgeous. It's to market within 4 months of a finished manuscript. So if it takes you 4 months to write it, your book's out in 8 months. Great distribution. You own your content, and you don't pay for the publishing of the books.
Could you do me a favor?
The reader does, because we're print on demand.
Because I'm
Print on demand means your books are printed in real time.
You
And the upside of that is it allows you to change.
It's in the fridge door. Thank you. I'll let you know what that was about after I get off this call.
Please turn off your mics.
Go ahead, Scott.
Scott's on mute.
Scott, you're muted.
We can't hear you, Scott, and we want to.
Sorry, how long has that been?
Like 3 minutes. You started talking about when we started Maison Vero and why.
Sorry. So so when we started Maison Vero, it really was to help meet authors in the circumstance of being an entrepreneur, a founder, a business owner that wanted their book to actually build credibility for the next phase of their business and their life. And I think that's why we're the fastest growing in the nation now, because that is our niche. All of these are good options depending upon your circumstance. Once you know your circumstance, you can pick the best partner for you.
When Scott and I started Maison Vero, one of the things that we had talked about, as he had mentioned, I published 2 books. Scott had published 9 books, all and through all these different publishing processes. I self-published my first book. I wish that I wouldn't have. I traditionally published my second book, which was great in terms of being brand accretive, and it became a #1 bestseller, which I'm grateful for. But it took 2 years to bring to market, which, didn't help my brand objectives. And one of the things that was common in both of those was there was a lot of steps along the way that we wished as authors we would have seen in the process. There was a lot of things that we wished that would have been done that were not done on both the self-publishing and the traditional side. And the accessibility to a team of people to actually help you and to connect with the human being around changes that you might want to make, were scarce to come by. It's traditionally getting harder and harder to get in contact with the person that's actually working on your book through the various stages. So one of the things that we did was we developed a process that we said, okay, if we were to put together an ideal publishing process for our books when they were being published, what would that look like? And so what I want to do is bring you through the different steps that we have basically are designed as a part of the professional publishing model, that regardless of which publishing path you choose, whether you choose to go with Outlier Books as an imprint of Maison Vero, or you choose to pursue a traditional publisher, or you choose to self-publish, take a picture of this slide, particularly because these are all of the things that you should do as an author and make sure that your publisher does as your publisher. I'm going to stay very high level on each of these. Otherwise, I can spend 30 minutes on this slide. I'm going to spend about 3 minutes on this slide. So I want you to look at this as really kind of 3 different tranches, if you will: the top layer, the middle layer, and then the bottom layer. The top layer is really deciding the type of book that you're going to write and when you want that book out and building a team around that. So one of the things that we do is very early on, we say, okay, when is this book coming out? What type of book is it going to be? What categories is it in? And then we build a team around the author, assigning a copy editor, a layout designer, a cover designer. And one of the things that we want to do within the first 3 weeks of starting a book, you'll see here on day 17, is drafting a cover, is putting a cover together for the author. The reason being is your cover is going to be the most important real estate of your book for your brand. I know that it's been said, don't judge a book by its cover, but the reality is everyone does. And everyone will judge you and your credibility and your brand and your speaker by the cover of your book. So there needs to be a lot of thought that goes into what your message is. And I will share with you, this is on the slide, but this is very important. The title of your book is important, but what's more important is the subtitle of your book. Your title should be catchy, but the subtitle of your book should answer the problem that you solve in the world. It should actually speak to the why, which I talked to earlier about, in terms of the pain point in which you're trying to solve. What motivates you to write this book? So we want to help bring that forward as quick as possible within the first, call it 3 weeks of bringing your book to market. That's the top part of this timeline. The next part is really where your book starts to build. We announce the cover to the world so that you as the author can start strategic marketing. If your goal is to do more speaking, we've seen authors book, 4, 6, 10 speaking engagements while they were still writing and publishing their book and getting the most out of their cover early on in the process. But then it's bringing the book through a production system. So once your manuscript is done, as Scott mentioned, your book can be out in about 4 months. That's why you see day 80 to day 180 here. It goes through a process of copy editing and then layout, and then it goes to the author for review. And then something that Scott and I added to this process, which doesn't happen in other publishing companies, is a final copy editing round. One of the things that you may have saw me post about was that when my book came out, even though it was traditionally published, there were 14 typos in this book. Scott and I were reading another book by another credible publisher, and there were 2 typos on page 1. And so we want to make sure that there's great care to making sure that there are no or minimal mistakes in the book is processed. So you want to make sure that there is a final cleanup version of your book. And then you want to make sure you receive the book in hand before it actually goes to market. This is something else that, I didn't have the opportunity to have, is that the book was out and I didn't get to hold it until the book was out. So one of the things we want to do is make sure that the author gets to actually see, feel, touch their book, make sure that it is the actual book that they want to bring to the world before it's released to the world. And then and only then should it be released to the world for pre-order. And then the last thing, and we'll talk about launching a book here in a second, the last thing is building a quality launch time between pre-order and launch to bring your book to the market. There's a lot of things that you can do, which Scott will talk to here in a second, including leveraging your platforms, Facebook, LinkedIn, which is a huge one for people in this particular space of thought leadership, Instagram, TikTok, that you really want to make sure that you are leveraging all of your platforms between your pre-order time and your official publication date to make sure that you build as many brand ambassadors, not for your book, not for say, hey, buy my book, support me, make me a #1 bestseller, but for your message that you're bringing into the world to say, this is the message that I'm sharing. Help me share this message to impact more lives together. With that said, I'll turn it back over to Scott to talk more about how to actually launch a book.
A couple of thoughts on this. I mentioned earlier that 95% of books never sell more than 5,000 copies. The facts are 90% of books sell about 346 copies. And so when you're thinking about the why behind your book, you're not writing a book to become wealthy, unless you're Mel Robbins. We've all read the Let Them theory. You're writing a book if you choose to monetize it because you have some other end in mind. And, as I am a literary agent in my, day job as well, what I've come to realize is that the industry goes in kind of, ebb and flows, right? For years, your cover was everything. And then it, how big the F word could be on your cover sold, 1,000 copies a day. And then I've noticed more recently, this may seem like a no-brainer to you, but the books that are selling the best are those that are written the best, which isn't always the case. Sometimes you could have 2 million TikTok followers. You could sell 50,000 books because people were just, after access to you. But right now, and I think for the foreseeable future, especially with the sort of on guard around AI and some revolt around AI in the literary world and the reading world, that the quality of your manuscript has now taken precedence. It hasn't always been the case. The books that are selling the most are those where Crystal tells Lori, buy this book. I love this book, right? It has a horrible cover, it's a horrible title, but the book is amazing. So I would encourage you to continue to focus on the quality of your manuscript, combined with the fact that you need a platform. The reason most people can't get a book deal at an independent or a traditional publisher, or even a hybrid publisher, is they have no platform. Because here's the secret in publishing. Outside of Maison Vero, which is why Davin and I founded this business, publishers do 3 things for you. Only 3 things. They edit your book, they print your book, and they distribute your book, meaning they put it on a truck to Amazon, the warehouse. They do nothing else. They don't market your book. That's your job as the author. You own all of the promotion, and the publisher knows that, which is why they don't publish anybody's book that doesn't have 1 million TikTok followers. So the point is, you need to equalize your time around writing a great, valuable book, knowing who your reader is. By the way, your reader is not everybody. Your reader's name is Tina, and she's 36, and she makes $142,000 a year, and she shops at Target on Thursdays and on Saturdays. And you need to know who your avatar is, combined with building your platform, because that's how you will end up distributing your book and selling your book, whether that be your LinkedIn or your TikTok or your Instagram or your YouTube or your Substack or your entrepreneur.com column or Outliers or your podcast, your newsletter, your email database. Start now, like tonight. Once you've decided why you're writing this book, what your plan is for it, who your reader is, and what problem you are solving for them. What do they call the problem? And how are you solving it for them? Then you go find out where are they. And you build a cohort group as strong and as fast and as trustworthy as possible. The biggest mistake we see authors make is they wait to the end, the manuscript's done, and they say, okay, now I've got to build a platform. No, you cannot build a platform overnight. It takes 4 and 5 years to build a platform. I used to host, believe it or not, this will sound bombastic, but for 7 years, I hosted the world's largest weekly leadership podcast called On Leadership with Scott Miller. 2 years ago, when I was still hosting it in my 7th year, I sold a book, my 9th book, to a publisher. I ended up not writing the book at the time. I returned the advanced. We, eliminated the contract, all in good standing. We're still good friends. And I said to them a few months ago, hey, if I rewrite the book, will you take it? And they said, well, we're not sure because your platform is less than it was, Scott. You don't have the podcast anymore. I stepped down after 7 years. 500 episodes was plenty. So even I, who's, written 8 books prior to that and had sold hundreds of thousands of copies, it was hard for me to even get a publishing deal. My platform with even 100,000, social followers. So I would just implore you, whatever publishing route you take, you need to be building your community, your cohort, your platform, and start it now. It's one of the services we offer our authors, is helping them figure out, how are you going to launch this book? How are you building your platform? What are you doing to ensure you come out strong and you stay strong? Because you want to have 1,000 people in your Facebook ambassador group that are pre-ordering the book for you. They're posting an Amazon review, and they're posting a photo and a selfie on Facebook. You want to have 100 Amazon reviews the first week, which is the hardest thing you've ever done in your life. I'll bet if I polled you and asked you, how many reviews have you ever given? The answer would be none. It's really hard. But these are all benefits your publisher should be coaching you on to make sure your platform is strong. Let me stop there and turn it back to Davin.
This is one of the benefits of why we did this partnership with Outlier Books is because there's already a built-in community here. This cannot be when you think about the publishing landscape. 4 million new titles were published last year. 4 million. Over 3 million of them were self-published. And quite frankly, to Scott's point, sold 36 books and didn't do what the author wanted to do. Part of it was because they didn't have a platform. The other part was because they didn't have a community. And one of the biggest pieces that you can leverage as an author is having a community. I think there's a massive opportunity here within Outlier Books to be able to support each other, to be able to amplify each other, and to like and share each other's social content, and to give each other reviews on their books. So there is a beautiful thing with having a built-in community to raise all ships that are on this tide together. This next slide and last slide before we go to Q&A that I'm going to share with you, I want to give a little disclaimer to, because this is the money slide, right? What does it cost to publish a book? And I want to be very clear before I switch that slide that this in no way was ever intended to be a sales pitch for Maison Vero, for Outlier Books. It truly was meant to be able to educate you on why you should write a book, how to write a book, how to publish a book, and how to launch a book. But one of the things that Scott and I talked about was that as an author, you're in one of three circumstances. You've thought about writing a book, but didn't know where to start, and you need to know, how do I write, how do I publish, and how do I launch a book? Or you've already written a book, you have a manuscript, and you're ready to publish it, and you've been exploring, do I pitch this to a traditional publisher? Or exploring hybrid publishers? Do I self-publish this through Amazon? Is that a good idea? Or maybe you've already self-published a book, and you're saying, where was this community? Where was Outlier Books a year ago? Where was this webinar a year ago? So what we wanted to do is figure out, how do we solve that circumstance for all three of those authors in that circumstance? So what does it cost to publish a book? Well, if you are in the write, publish, launch, meaning that you are just now starting, you haven't even written a book, it could cost you $35,000 or more to write, publish, or launch the book, depending on which writing path you choose. Do you hire a ghostwriter? Do you write the book? Do you do the interview process that Scott talked about? If you've already written the book and you have a manuscript, well, to Scott's point, how good is the manuscript? The thing that is selling the most books right now are really great manuscripts. You may have read the manuscript and think that it's great, but has a developmental editor or someone who has professionally edited books, looked at it and made sure that it is worthy of being a great manuscript. So there could be a process in the publishing launch phase where you have a developmental editor look at it and give you some feedback to make sure that the book it goes from a good manuscript to a great manuscript. So we can publish and launch a book starting at $25,000. Or maybe you're in that third circumstance where you've already published a book, you self-published it, and you wish that you didn't. And now you want to relaunch it with authority, distinction, and credibility, and with the Outlier Books moniker on it, and to leverage a community that will help support relaunching that book into the world. And that could be done for as little as $5,000 because there's some still editing and some changes that would need to be made. So these are all ranges depending on where you're at on what it would cost to bring a book to market through the professional publishing model through Outlier Books. Before we go to Q&A, I want to share this. Scott MacGregor reached out to me a couple years ago and asked me to contribute to the Standing O series that you guys might remember. Incredible life of books. I was grateful to write a chapter in the Standing O tribute series of books. And one of the things that I thought about back then was, this community is full of amazing people with amazing stories, and someone somewhere needs to hear your story. They're waiting for it. So regardless of how you choose to publish your book, I would encourage you, don't wait to share your story, because someone's waiting on it. So Scott MacGregor, thank you so much for this partnership, for bringing Scott and I on the call today. We're going to open it up for some Q&A. I'm going to stop sharing and we'll get into answering some questions.
So good. Thank you guys so much. So Robert Hamilton Owens, you're up first.
Hey, great. Thanks, you guys. This was really helpful. I'm one of those clueless guys. Somebody asked me to write a book about the stuff that I did. I did it on Amazon. Didn't expect much out of it. Sold maybe 500 copies. Surprised myself. Would like to probably relaunch it now that I've been thinking about writing a book. You say about $5,000. How long does that take to maybe relaunch a book?
Yeah. So if the manuscript has no changes to it, and really all we're doing is revising it and rebranding it to an Outlier Books book, we can get that to market within about 2 months.
Got it. And if I want to change content now because I'm going more to a specific audience, before I was just writing it, take some work. That'd take maybe what, a year?
No, not at all. Depending on how much changing. I mean, if you're writing a whole separate book, if you were starting fresh, it would take 6 months. But if you're taking what you already have written and you're kind of doing a second edition, if you will, you're revising some of the content to re-aim to your market, that can be done in 3 to 4 months.
Secondly, I'm writing a second book, and it's a niche book, and I don't know how to get to the niche. It's for military recruiters who talk to kids who want to be special ops guys, and we flunk out all these kids because they don't do the right thing. So I'd like to get a book to recruiters to say, if you want to be a special ops guy, read this book. If you don't do the book, you can't do it. How do you get to that kind of a niche?
Scott?
Well, they're all on Instagram and they're all on LinkedIn, and you should be connecting to all of them and posting content on those platforms, because that's where it is, right? No one's taking out advertisements in the USA Today newspaper. No one's placing ads on, airport, billboards anymore, whatever it is. I mean, it's all social. So you should be creating a conversation as the thought leader in that circumstance, probably on Instagram and LinkedIn for those two particular situations. If you told me you were writing a book about leadership development for Fortune 5,000 companies, I would say, oh, that's Facebook. Because a large contingent on Facebook are 62-year-old females who still have strong impact on L&D, training, human resources in Fortune 500, Fortune 5,000. So it's kind of knowing where your audience is and curating a community and conversation. And when you build credibility, they'll flock to you. Okay, Scott. Next question. Oh, sorry, Robert.
So you're saying build the community through Instagram versus trying to get to a military recruiter guy.
Well, I think the point is they're on Instagram because that's also how they're recruiting. So trust me, they're on Instagram and they are on LinkedIn. I guarantee you it's one of their recruitment tools, and they'll come across and find you and see you as part of the conversation.
Thank you so much.
There's other ways, but for sure, at least that is the beginning.
Thank you.
Who is next? I think I don't see number 2.
Rich is next.
Rich,
Yeah. My question is, do you reject a book idea, or will you give guidance on whether you think this idea, you can have a strong why, but you think it's not going to work? Like, do you give any perspective on that, or you just take any book?
Scott and I want to fight over answering that.
I know.
Okay.
Scott, you go and then I'll opine.
Yeah, I'm going to take 30 seconds.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
We frequently have authors that want to write a parable. And what they really want to write is a fable. By the way, there's a difference, right? A fable is basically a parable featuring animals, rabbits and fish, things like that. And there's like only 3 people in history that have done it very well, right? Spencer Johnson, Who Moved My Cheese, John Gordon, and a couple of others. And so we try to talk authors out of that to say, okay, so your audience is CFOs. And you want CFOs who are, by and large, white guys in their 60s. Sorry, but lots of women. But by and large, you want them to read a story about a bunny rabbit and his friend the turtle. So that's a crazy example. No, It's not. I talk people off the cliff 3 times a week. So what we specialize in, Rich, is architecture and structure. Great. Who is the reader? Tell me their name. Tell me their birth date. Tell me their FICO score, right? All that kind of stuff. What is the problem they have? And what's the message? That micro targeting is super important. Davin, you say what?
Great.
Yeah, I would say this. There's a lot of people that have really great ideas, and there's a lot of popular topics, right? Everyone right now is writing a book on AI. And so when we have a conversation with people, what we say is, listen, don't just be more noise, right? Don't just, don't go where the puck is, go where the puck is going, but then also write it from a perspective that's going to stand the test of time. 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years from now, is your topic and your book going to be more relevant, or are you just trending with whatever the topic of the day is? Now, That said, there's only so many topics. There's only so many notes on a piano, right? But that hasn't stopped new songs from being written over centuries. The difference is that people have a unique voice, a unique sound. So what is your unique voice, your unique sound that you are bringing to the relevant topic? And will that topic be relevant 5, 10, 15 years from now, or will it be old hat in 3 years? So we don't just accept any proposal. It's let's have some conversation about why you're writing this book. What is its shelf life? What is your unique take and voice around it? And how do we position it that way? Because one of the things we didn't cover is that 10% of the work is writing and publishing the book. 90% of the work is launching the book and maintaining its relevance after it launches, which is something that, when as a part of Maison Vero and Outlier Books, that is something we care deeply about. We're not just in a boat, and pushing you off and saying good luck. We're in the boat rowing with you for years to come. And so that conversation of relevance is very important in the very beginning.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So don't write a fable, Rich.
Absolutely not.
Sorry for all of those who already named your bunny.
Exactly. I think we're going to Robert, and then we're going to Patrick.
Yeah, so quick question. I've self-published 5 books, did it from an impact influence ministry perspective, didn't care if I made any money off of it. They're airplane books, so you can read them in 2 hours, maybe 13 to 15,000 words each, 1.5 spacing on them, so guys can read them really good. Different topics. What's the minimum size that you guys would be interested in publishing a book? I was told that if it's that small, no publisher would ever pick it up because it's too cheap, maybe $10 a book.
That's a good question, Robert. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever thought, since you said they're 13 to 15,000 words per book?
Yeah, that's correct.
And there are how many? 5 of them?
Just 5 of them.
Have you ever thought about combining them into one book?
So they're very different topics. The first 2 can be, one is on marriage, turning around a marriage just like you do a business. The other one's the coaching side of that. So those easily can be put together. Yeah. The third one is on coaching. The fourth one is on serving others. And the fifth one's a biblical write-up on the greatest commandment. So very, very different topics. You can't put those
very different topics. Yeah. So that there's not really a minimum. We haven't been asked that question before. That's a really good question. I would say that I'd be open to a conversation to explore what the possibilities are, and we can talk about that. I'd be happy to have a conversation. By the way, for anyone on this call, if you want to take this conversation deeper for your unique situation and you want to have a 30-minute call with Scott or I to talk about your unique situation, we are happy to do that. Feel free to email Lisa at MaisonVero.com, Lisa at MaisonVero.com. She will schedule a call with Scott or I, and we can go deeper on your unique situation with your book and what might be best for you on how to bring it to market.
Robert, let me pay you a compliment. This is Scott. You're on the right track. Shorter books are in. Look at the declining attention span for all of us. All of us have an assault on our attention. I tell every author, write your book that is an Atlanta to Phoenix flight for someone, right? Mass, maybe 3.5 hours, maybe 35, 40,000 words. No one wants to read a 65,000 word nonfiction book. I don't. Those days are over. So I actually think you might be a little bit shy. If you were asking me their ideal word count, I would say something between 30 and 32,000 words. That's about a 3-hour read where someone lands in Phoenix and says, get Rich on the phone. I want to hire him. I want him at my board meeting next month. Find me Rich Keller. So I think you're a little sly, but I'll tell you, if you go to Barnes & Noble, these short books are in. You go to independent bookstores, these square books, the shorter books where someone can read a book in 3 hours. It's the future. And I don't think it's trending upwards because I don't know about you, but there is, I don't think anybody here's attention span is growing in the 2020s.
Yeah. So to your point, what I did in the books, most of them is particularly the first 2. The very first one, I think, has 17 chapters. Each chapter is maybe a page and a half long. It's like, here's the issue, here's the solution. Here's how you fix it. I'm moving on to the next one.
I think you've got a great formula. That's what Robin Sharma does, right? With the book, The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari and Everyday Hero Manifesto. I think you may be before your time. Might be a little slight on the word count because the reader does have a value exchange, right? Is this worth $22? Is this worth $10? What's the value? So think about that. By the way, Scott MacGregor, we're welcome to stay as long as you need us to if there's more questions.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that. Pat Smith.
Hello, thank you. Here's my elevator pitch. So, pandemic comes and goes. I started my own publishing company. 15 years ago, I realized that, well, I didn't realize it then, but my family invented pickleball. And they taught it to the people who are the founders. And I wrote a biographical history of the pre-pickleball. Professional editor, professional cover, did the entire thing in InDesign, the files of which I still have, photos, all citations, all accreditations, all royalties paid in full. I have my own ISBNs. And I am interested in working with you on this. It's 120 pages. The first half of the book is the story of the history, told through my eyes as a child. The second half of the book is recipes for the foods and drinks that were drunk and eaten by the people who invented pickleball at the parties where it became a real thing. And I'll tell you right here, this a little, what do you call this? I forget what it's called, but here's the cherry or whatever they call it. Pickleball is not about a boat or a dog. It's about getting drunk. And the history of it is eating gherkin pickles from a German recipe that I include in the book. It's available on Amazon, but you can buy it through any bookstore that's in the English-speaking world. I've sold them in Europe and Australia and around this country. I published it about 5 or 6 years ago. It took about 10 years to write. And let's see, what else? I think that kind of covered it.
Patrick, 3 words.
Yeah.
Bring it on.
Okay.
Scott, he's also a Grammy winner, a Yale grad, and like has more martial art belts, black belts than you could possibly count.
Al Gore may
by
have
the
said
way,
I
his
invented the
family
internet, but
pickleball.
I believe that Patrick invented pickleball. So I'm all in on this one, Patrick.
Okay, I will be in touch.
As you were talking, I was already thinking about all of the I mean, half of the pickleball players are in the hospital because they tore their Achilles tendon, right? And so what a great
Here's the thing. I've been studying Chinese martial and healing arts for 45 years. I just got back yesterday from Antigua where I was teaching what I call pickleball qigong, which is get your body ready to go out and play pickleball at 65. So when you think you're 16, you don't end up in the hospital.
I have, and in a given week, one of my friends is in the hospital because they did XYZ playing pickleball, usually about 2 weeks in.
Give him my number.
So,
well, no, we're going to give him your book.
Patrick might be an outlier. I'm not quite sure, but I'm pretty sure he's an outlier.
I just love the way you delivered that with unmistakable confidence about the discovery. So, Patrick, we're in.
All right, I'll call you.
All right. Who else has got a question for these guys? You got 2 of the most brilliant guys in this space. So fire away. Don't be shy.
Wait, who's the second one? Just kidding, Gavin. Just kidding.
Yeah, I know.
Scott's the most humble person you'll ever meet. MacGregor. Scott MacGregor.
Actually, I actually have another question. I just you made this comment about ghostwriters. What happens if you write like shit? I mean, like it takes you 20 years to write a book, but somebody you hire, and I'm not suggesting that they'd be fake about like not knowing you, but like, what's your point of view on, does everybody write that book that you hire, that hires you?
Rich, I think I understand your question. What's my opinion in general on the ghostwriting genre?
Yeah, like I'm somebody who's dying to write a book, but like I don't write well. I speak well. I don't write well. What do I do? Are you going to come down on me if I hire a ghostwriter? Like, I just want to understand that more.
First of all, completely ethical. No questions there at all. Second, only to your spouse. The second most important decision in your life is your ghostwriter.
In fact, my wife may be my ghostwriter. It's funny you say that.
Well, she may not be your wife after she's your ghostwriter. But my point is, it is extreme. You're onto something. Okay. So there's no discussion on is it ethical? 100%. Okay. The question is, at what level do they help you? Do you give them credit or not? Are they work for hire versus they own part of the property? And it's all about fit. I mean, because nobody has their first CRM. Everybody's on their last CRM, which was their second or third CRM in your company. You do not ever want to be in your third ghostwriter. So fit is everything. Relationships. Do they get me? Do they understand? Are they patient? Is it their book? Or is it my book? What is their ego like? So we specialize in the second most important decision in your life, and that is, what kind of ghostwriter, what kind of support do you need? Is it best to interview you, right? I mean, there's no one set circumstance. If we were your publisher, we would spend hours getting to know you to really decide what's the right fit for you, because we want your first one to be your only one.
Great.
And
I
some
really
spend
appreciate that.
$6,000, some spend 16, some spend 25. I got an author that spent, he's a billionaire. He spent $350,000.
Ooh.
I know.
I
I
think
appreciate that.
Jackie had it. I think Jackie was next, and then Martin.
I'm just going to put on my best Kathy Love chat moderator and ask the question on behalf of Laura Bassett, who is not able to join because of connectivity issues. And this goes back to building that community, I believe, because it was a couple of segments back. Would you do a new Facebook or use your existing personal page thinking about a leadership book? And what about Substack? How does that play into conversation today?
Well, I can start it, David can finish. I think it's important to know where your people are first drives which platform, right? Like I have 2 Facebook pages. One is what I would say is, my public Facebook page, and one is more of a private Facebook page, but they both have 5,000-ish followers, and I use both and I post to both because you never know when they're going to find you, where people are going to find you. And so I would leverage whatever is the right platform for your style and where your people are. It's most important to know where your people are. Substack, potentially, if you're going to keep it up and it's actually got valuable content and it breaks through the noise of something else. And so, again, I think Jackie, it's kind of more of a circumstance-based, personalized, question. Like, for example, the previous question about the with Robert and the military recruiting. I don't think they're on Facebook, quite frankly, but I guarantee you they're on Instagram, and I'm quite sure a large portion of them are on LinkedIn. By the way, they're probably not on Pinterest, and they're probably not on some other station, but they're probably on X. And so it just depends on what the person's circumstance is. So I think yes to all those questions conditionally.
Yeah.
Again, when anybody publishes with us, we do a 90-minute just marketing focused. What are your goals? Who are your people? Where do they gather? What problem are you solving? What is the circumstance? What are your current assets? What is your bandwidth? And we just listen and talk and chat and steer. Some people get on a call and say, hey, I host a webinar once a month. Why not host it once a week? You're getting 400 people once a month. Why not do it? Wait a minute. Just focus on what you already know is working for you. And so we treat each circumstance a little bit differently. Davin, you want to add to that?
Yeah, everything Scott just said, but then on top of that, you need to think about how long it actually takes you to build a platform, right? It takes a while to build a Facebook, a new business page, a new group page, a new LinkedIn business page, a new Instagram page, a new Substack page. So depending on what your time horizon is for bringing a book to market, creating a whole brand new page could take a long time. And we all know that algorithms don't show all of our posts to, our entire network. It's usually just a small percentage, particularly on LinkedIn. I've got 25,000 followers, and I know that only 5% of them see my posts. And I know it's a small number compared to some others who have hundreds of thousands of followers. My point is that leverage the platform that you have. Now, what I will say is this. That said, I did create separate pages for my book, meaning that if you go to LinkedIn, you will see that my book has its own page. If you go to Facebook, you'll see that it has its own page. And there's reasons that you would want to do that. So I think it's not an or, I think it's an and. You start with the platforms that you have. And then once you get clear about all the things Scott just said, who your reader is, who your buyer is, where they gather, the problem that you're solving in the world, you build a second page specifically for your book that targets that market.
Jackie, to add to that, it's a caution. Your social media is rented real estate, right? Every day, someone's getting hijacked and they're taking their 30,000 friends and followers, or X is shutting you down because you said something about so-and-so, or so is, Instagram. And so I think it's a complement ecosystem where you want to have an email database, you want to have a website, you want to have social platforms, you want a newsletter, because you're going to rent some and you're going to own some, and you don't want to go all in on one thing, because when someone comes in and steals your Instagram account that you've worked 2 years for, Instagram isn't saying, hello, thank you for calling the Instagram reestablishment hotline. How can I help you? There's no one at Instagram to help you, ever. You're never getting any response. And so you need to go into it eyes wide open.
Good advice.
Sorry for my
Martin.
imitation of the Instagram hotline number. It doesn't exist. Trust me.
That was a great impression, Scott.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, first of all, Jim, I just want to say your presentation was absolutely outstanding. Just both the slides, the conciseness, everything that you said, it was just super clean. And man, just bravo to you both. I feel like
mainly to Davin, Martin, or kind of to me also.
Yeah. Scott needs to be validated, Martin. I don't. Play it with Scott just so he can sleep tonight.
Keep going, Martin.
Well, both of you have great hair, so I'll say that. So
mine's real. I'm just kidding.
Your hair looks like AI. I'm just joking. So I feel like writing a book has been something I've wanted to do since I was a kid. And I've had a lot of cool experiences in life, and I feel like I have all the ingredients that would make something fun to read and help people. I just don't know how to put it together. So just a quick background about me. I recently retired. I served 23 years in the Air Force. Wow. I was an intelligence analyst for the Air Force. I appreciate that. An intel analyst for the Air Force. I joined because of 9/11. And obviously I retired back in November. And so there's a lot of cool experiences with that. In addition to that, I've been able to, I have a podcast I've had for 8 years, and I've had so many thought leaders and just authors and inspirational people. And I've been thinking about how I could combine my background in the military and then just the lessons from my podcast guest into a book. But I don't know, is there anything there? I guess is kind of the short summary of my question.
Gavin, can I share in?
Go ahead.
Sorry, whoever raises their hand first, meaning me. This is not a shrinking genre. This is not I mean, you look at the books that Jocko Willink and Leif Babin wrote. These books have swept the corporate industry by storm. I mean, these are phenomenal leadership books. They've built a multi-million-dollar coaching leadership practice. I think there's a great opportunity to blend the lessons of that. There is a whole a groundswell, I think, of support and respect for the military in our nation right now, regardless of who you voted for, party you're in. I think this is a nuanced conversation we'd love to go deeper with you on. Like, what is your why? How would you monetize it? How would you bring these assets together? Who is the audience? 100% worthy of a conversation. Absolutely.
I appreciate that. Yeah. Thank you guys for that. So that's good. Thank you.
Yeah. Absolutely. Other questions?
I know we went a little bit over. We're going to have, additional conversations, and I'll explain to everybody on further calls what we're going to do to throw kind of the power of Outlier Magazine, now that we have 100,000 subscribers, behind the authors that decide that Outlier Books is the avenue for them, and also leverage the community. But, one of the things I love about these guys and our relationship with Maison Vero is we've got a whole team at our disposal. They're super accessible, and you don't always get access to folks like Scott Miller and Davin. So, I couldn't be more excited about this. And, if you guys have questions, just shoot them my way. But guys, thanks for an unbelievable hour. I really, really appreciate it.
And we also learned who invented pickleball as a bonus.
Right. Huge.
Who knew? Who knew?
Now we know. An outlier. Of course. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate your time today.
Thank you for hosting.
We'd be honored to work with you, and we pride ourselves in investing in our authors. No question, no Zoom call is unacceptable. We'd love to just brainstorm with you, including if we say, don't do that with us. Do that somewhere else, or don't do that at all. We won't tell you that probably, but thanks for your honor. Thank you, Scott. Appreciate your ambassadorship.
Thank you. Take care, guys.
Look forward to seeing you guys again soon. Thanks again, Scott.
Thanks, Davin.